As of the time of posting this video, Aaron Dean's sentence was announced. Stay tuned for the sentencing update at the end of this video.
Welcome back for another episode of TBC Podcast, episode number 11, Reactions. Let's get it.
2 seconds. The body camera video shows the officer checking the front door of the house. You see the screen door closed, but the front door is open. From there, the officer walks to the right, to the east side of the house. You can see the white car parked under the carport. The officer walks up to the side door. That screen door there is also closed, but the main door, again, is open. So the officer can see into the house. When the officer gets to the back of the house, there's a blue car parked in front of the garage. He turns on his flashlight and checks the gate to the backyard. That's at 2:32 a.m. and 24 seconds. It's been 42 seconds since he checked the front door, and he has not identified himself as a police officer. At 2:32 a.m. and 48 seconds, the officer opens the gate and walks into the backyard. You see the air conditioning unit at the back of the house there. Just 8 seconds later, you see the officer walk to the window at the back of the house. Atatiana Jefferson is standing on the other side of that window. You hear the officer yell, "Put your hands up, let me see your hands."
Put your hands up, show me your hands!
He immediately fires the single shot through the window, killing Atatiana.
It's been 1,143 days since the home on East Allen Avenue was wrapped in crime scene tape.
And they go open the gate.
And since James Smith asked police to check on his neighbor.
They're usually home, but they never had both of the front doors open.
Aaron Dean.
It's been 1,143 days since Officer Aaron Dean killed Atatiana Jefferson. Put your hands up! Show me your hands!
It's not normal for them to have both of the doors open this late that long.
At 2:25 a.m., Jefferson's neighbor, James Smith, called a non-emergency line asking police to make sure his neighbor was okay.
I explained on the call that there wasn't any violence going on. It was simply a concern for my neighbor.
Officer Aaron Dean arrived at the home at 2:29. His body camera video shows the 36-year-old second-year officer first looked through the front door, then walked to the side. Inside, Jefferson was playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew, Zion. About 1 minute after first getting to the home, Dean gets to the back, never announcing his presence or that he was a police officer. Court documents say Jefferson heard someone creeping in her backyard, grabbed her gun, and opened the blinds. Put your hands up! Show me your hands! The single shot Dean fired killed Jefferson.
Shots fired, sorry, supervisor.
People say, well, James, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But I made a call. I made the call because I thought that they were going to do what I called them to do. Check on my neighbor. And they didn't do that.
This is a pelvic cavity here.
Nobody looked at that video and said there's any doubt that this officer acted inappropriately.
At first, Fort Worth police shared photos of Jefferson's gun, but later called that a mistake.
The gun is irrelevant. She was in her own home, caring for an 8-year-old nephew.
Dean never gave police investigators any reason why he fired.
Had the officer not resigned, I would have fired him for violations of several policies, including our use of force policy.
2 days after the killing,
at approximately 6 p.m., Aaron Dean was arrested for the murder of Miss Jefferson.
She was in her own place and shot and killed her. That is not only unacceptable, that's murder.
No comment.
Jefferson was the 6th person Fort Worth police killed in a 5-month span of 2019.
But I'm here to let you know your city is hurting.
Frustrated and frightened community members filled council meetings.
No justice, no peace!
And filled streets.
This is after the kid. Aaron Dean.
3 weeks after the shooting, police released Dean's job interview with Fort Worth PD.
I want to serve my fellow citizens in a very up close and personal way.
He's asked if he could kill.
Will you be able to kill somebody if you have to? No problem. No problem.
Okay, we're going to go to your number 2, and then we'll come back with the commentary.
Verdict. In a crowded courtroom hallway, there was a prayer for justice.
We just want to say thank you right now.
And then the image that says everything about how they all felt in the moment before it's read. 3 years and 5 days of testimony later.
Aaron York Dean.
It was a delayed response in an overflow room, and then the news sunk in and the raw emotion out.
He shot that girl.
Guilty of manslaughter was not what Atatiana Jefferson's family and friends wanted to hear.
Not murder, but manslaughter.
Emotions poured outside the courthouse as the people did.
Not guilty would have been worse.
Aaron Dean's family rushed out the door and into cars, but not without hearing the other side's discontent.
Stand up, come downtown, and make your voice heard.
The state actually gave me a reassuring feeling.
The sentencing phase is sure to bring even more emotion.
We're keeping her name alive, but we just wish we could have got that real full justice that she deserved.
We are already failed. It'll just be another failure on top of it.
Neither side likely feels justice happened today, but they did all feel this. In Tarrant County, I'm Jobin Puniker.
Wow.
Wow. Sis didn't even have a fighting chance. Good Lord.
So let's unpack this. All right, because there's so much going on with the 2 videos there. For starter, we're gonna talk about how Aaron Dean actually was called on the scene by the concerning neighbor. You know, he said that he told the dispatcher, or he told police that, you know, he has concerns about, you know, his neighbor, somebody to go to do a welfare check on his neighbor. So to hear that gentleman, you know, when he's been interviewed by the news media, for him to tell his side of the story and how emotionally he felt when he was telling his story, I feel a sense of I feel horrible for the guy, because he is trying to. He feels that he's to blame for her life being snatched away, because he put his trust and faith in the police, the 4 police, to go and do what he thought they was going to do, which is, you know, go and check on his neighbor. So the guy feels responsible for the death of his neighbor, and I feel horrible that took place and transpired with this gentleman. How do you guys feel about that? What's your thoughts about that, EQ?
I mean, in his defense, he was trying. He did what he thought was the right thing to do. So you can't blame him for that. I don't, like he said, it's not normal for them to leave both the doors open or whatever. So, you know, if I would have seen something like that 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and I know that's not typical behavior of my neighbors, then yeah, I'm gonna assume something. I mean, it was a risky call either way, because, you know, we've seen situations like this before. So some people are a little apprehensive in calling for help. But in his defense, he was just doing the right thing. He was doing what any concerned neighbor would do. And unfortunately, it did not end, or the call did not go, you know, how I'm sure how he, like he said, how it would go. He was trusting that they would come to protect and serve. Part of that, their job in serving, is to make sure the safety and well-being of people is intact. And here you have an officer who clearly did not do that. You did announce yourself. You went in their backyard. You didn't even give this person a fighting chance. You know, you just fired. Boom. You didn't know whether she had a weapon or what. You didn't even take time to investigate. And part of your job as a law enforcer is to investigate.
And we're gonna definitely break it down to that part, EQ. So we're gonna definitely get into that. But appreciate you for putting it out there. No, you're fine. Appreciate you for putting it out there like that. B-Dub, how do you feel about this gentleman that made the initial phone call to police?
People wonder why, you know, people say F the police. And it's messed up, because it's messed up for all of the officers out there who got into this line of work for the right reasons.
Correct.
The ones who understand that it's a risky job and they choose to take that risk, no different from servicemen and women. But even though you know it's a risk, you still perform your job in a certain type of way. So I feel sad for them. I feel sad for the neighbor, but at the same time, because it's not his fault.
No,
let's just be 100% clear. He's not responsible for the actions of other people.
No.
So I don't blame him at all. However, I will say this is why communication with your neighbors is important. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's that late at night, you see doors open, and you don't hear or see anybody because they was in the back room. So you're concerned. But my thought is, does he not have her number to call? And I say that because I actually just went through a very, very similar situation with my neighbor. Because him and his daughter, not put his business out there, but I talked to him the day before he was supposed to go pick up from the airport. And I didn't see or hear from him again for like 2 weeks. And what made me concerned was he didn't even put his trash out. Now, he told me they was going to go take a little trip out of town, go do some stuff. But he said it was only going to be for a couple of days. So I only expected him to be gone for a couple of days. Not long enough to miss a trash pickup. So I was like, I hope everything okay. So I grabbed my phone and I texted him. Like, hey, how's the visit going with your daughter? Just checking on her, hope everything good, whatever. Just a feeler to see if he would respond. And if he didn't respond, then, maybe I was probably going to do the same exact thing. If he had not responded, I was probably going to call and have him go do a welfare check, or I would have went over there myself and did a check.
Yeah.
So it's tough because technically he did the right thing. Is what you should do. Nobody's asking anybody to be heroes. That's what officers get paid for. I know some people say, he should have went over there. Would I have went over there? Like I said, yeah, probably. If you're not a person who's willing to do that, then that's what you do. He called the non-emergency line, which is what you're supposed to do. He said, hey, nothing crazy, nothing like that. I don't know what's happening, but here's the situation. Can somebody just roll through and just kind of check and make sure everything's okay?
G-Man, what you got, my guy?
First of all, my condolences go out to her family, friends, everybody affected.
Right.
It's just a tragic case. Just to kind of piggyback off what B-Dub said, it also speaks to the lack of communication between neighbors, right? I don't know how long they've been around there. Typically, neighbors, and especially in that area, if you're not familiar, they've been there a while, I'm assuming. But I know that, so I'm not saying they have, but if I put myself in the shoes, but to answer your question, of course he wasn't wrong. Obviously, he'd known if he'd have made that call, this was going to happen, he wouldn't have made the call. But better communication with the neighbors. Hey, I hit you up, you answer, then I'm gonna probably take it to a next level. Most time, if I look out when I see a door open on a warm night, probably just cars there, don't look, whatever. I tend to mind my business. Neighbors should look out for each other. I would say that. So, but in no way was the neighbor fault. Just to stick to the question, obviously, the officer did not act appropriately. He didn't act within training. And after looking at the video, I'd never seen that video. Obviously, questions about his hiring obviously should have came into effect. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. And none of this should have happened. But I'll park it right there, and then as we go further, then I answer some more questions about it.
Right. Okay, but when you got, go ahead, EQ. You finna say something? Go ahead.
I have a question. So why was his charge reduced to manslaughter and not murder? Because in my eyes, it was murder. I mean, clearly, this video just pretty much showed, a murder.
Right.
I mean, is
Well,
it because he's a police officer and he has no prior felonies? Because I did hear them say that, and I heard an attorney speaking on the case, but he wasn't affiliated with it. He said in some cases, police officers who have no prior criminal convictions their charges can be reduced. I mean, what went into play to reduce this charge from murder to manslaughter?
because it's about the mental capability. Okay, so it's about the mental capability. They're trying to say that. See, when you talk about manslaughter, that means you were reckless. When you're saying a first degree, when you talk about a murder, that means an intent, saying that you was intentional. So they're saying that, with all the evidence that they seen when they saw the video and everything that transpired, they felt that the jury said that, hey, we got enough to say that this guy was reckless versus him intentionally wanting to take this, woman's life. That's what they're saying. So it's about the mental capability between manslaughter and murder. One is reckless, the others is intentional. We're gonna talk about the officer, all right? So he gets the phone call, all right, and we all saw the video. We saw exactly what he did, and a bunch of general orders, his training, everything that we saw that he did was supposedly, that it was not the way he was not taught to do exactly what he did. All right. How do you guys feel that he handled the initial call when he actually drove up to the location where Atatiana Jefferson lost her life at?
So real quick, I'll give my thoughts on the officer, and then I'll step away. I want to know who trained this guy, because he walked away alive. He could have easily walked away dead. So you walk up to a house, and I'm not a police officer, so let me not pretend to know, but I'm just using common sense. If I walk up to a house and the door is open, come to do a welfare check, first I'm listening to see if I hear any movement. And before I go, if I feel like something's there that I need to investigate further, I'm calling backup. I'm not going, because you can't cover the house. So you walking around the back. Now, what if something was going on and you walk around the back and somebody come out the front door and come around right behind you and bust you in the back of the head, blow your brains out? See what I'm saying? So I think the way he handled it was completely wrong. And when I saw the release of that video when he got hired, his interview video, it really my spidey senses started tingling the way he answered that question.
Like Jim and Jamal said earlier, and B-Dub alluded to earlier, when you talk about the hiring process of this guy. And there was a video where it said that this gentleman, during his trial, there was an expert witness who came and testified, and he was a psychologist and was talking about this guy's mental train of thought, saying that he had no business even being hired by the police agency, by Fort Worth Police Department, and that his mental capacity as far as like making decisions and things like that was totally off. But as I was talking to Gentleman Jamal earlier, before we started talking here, the way that psychiatrist was, the expert witness was talking about him, it was almost as if he was taking off the spotlight on Aaron Dean and putting the responsibility of saying, hey, look, this is Fort Worth. This is you. You guys are the one who hired him, so you guys are more responsible than Aaron Dean is. How do you guys feel about that with talking with hearing expert witnesses and so on and so forth?
Well, there's going to be there is a sense of responsibility on Fort Worth Police Department. They do play a part in this because they made the decision to hire this guy. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if after all of this, they don't slap a lawsuit against Fort Worth Police Department. I would, because you did not properly or adequately change this cop. He was still a rookie. He should have had a partner or somebody, a supervisor, to assist him in this call. Because a call at this time of night, you shouldn't have. Even as an officer, I wouldn't have been comfortable going on this type of call alone. And then for you to sit there and just blatantly say, yes, I'll kill. I'm good with killing. I mean, to me, that makes me question your judgment. Are you, how are you going to handle working under pressure in situations like this when you encounter someone of a different ethnicity? I mean, it is just so many things that go through my mind. And why didn't you knock on the door? You took it upon yourself to go through a back gate. If they in the house playing video games, 9 times out of 10, you didn't hear them. So it's just so many things and so many things that go through my head and just so many why questions. Like why you didn't do this and why you didn't do that. Because, dude, man. And then have you apologized to their family? You just have shown no emotion. So now that makes me question, did you go there to kill? Or did you go there to protect and serve?
Or did you go there to be a hero? Some people, you got officers out there that's like that as well.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too.
You want to be the hero. You want to you want to be the first man on the scene and say, "Hey, I got somebody," or "I made an arrest," or whatever. You see a lot of officers have that type of mindset, and also you have officers that's on the department where they're actually, they do walk around in fear. They walk around in fear a lot.
Fuck all that. If you scared, go to church. That's what church is for. Because, like I said, when you take on this job, you know that there are risks, there's dangers. You have to be willing to accept that. You can't take a job and say, well, I know it's dangerous, and then be scared all the goddamn time. I don't think he didn't get that woman no time. He never announced himself as the police. The front door was open. He didn't knock on the door. Let's keep in mind, this was a fucking welfare check. This is not, hey, something suspicious is happening. This is, I think something could possibly be wrong with my neighbor. Can y'all go check on him?
Yeah.
Knock on the door, announce yourself. Even if we went around the back, okay, whatever. If you see something, get the hell out of the way. Make sure you're safe first, then announce yourself. You're outside, they're inside. You got a whole wall of wires and bricks and wood in between y'all. He could have easily ducked out the way, rolled out the way, said, hey, police, whatever, and then try to assess the situation. But in reality, in my opinion, again, I'm not an officer. I'm not pretending to know procedure or how it should go. I'm just trying to use my own basic common sense and safety. If I was in that situation, I would want to make sure that I'm as safe as possible. But I also want to make sure that I'm doing my job as well.
And being safe doing it. Being safe
doing it. So
right. Because
I think there was very much intent. There's no other way around it. I know he didn't know who was there. He didn't know it was man, woman, child. But I think the fact that anybody, if that kid would have peeked through the window, God forbid, that child would be dead. Because all they need is something. It could have been a cell phone. It could have been the game controller. It doesn't matter. It could have been nothing at all because all he had to say was, I thought I saw a gun. That's it. End of story. Oh, okay, well, he thought he saw a gun. Because we've seen that happen. We've seen black people get killed pulling out wallets, pulling out candy bars, holding nothing at all. We've seen a man get shot laying on the ground with his hands in the air. So it don't take nothing at all to say, oh, well, I feared for my life. So I think he got there and this was his opportunity. And the scariest part is, like you said, Mr. Know-It-All, maybe he was trying to be a hero. Maybe he didn't call for backup because he was going to be the one to do it. But the thing about it is, the sad part about it is, in some people's mind, killing us does make them a hero. In some circles, that does make them a hero. And like I said, after seeing that tape of his interview, it just makes me think a lot of things. But you know what? 2 years might be long enough to get justice while he in prison. And I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna leave it alone.
G-Man, you got something?
Yeah. So to to what B-Dub was saying, murder was the appropriate charge. To answer EQ's question, what they will do is try him for, but they later included this is a possibility too. So the initial charge was murder, but manslaughter fits because of what Mr. Nodal said, the mental culpability, intentionally knowing recklessly, et cetera, et cetera. What made it, why I say murder fits? Murder fits because he intended to kill her. Right? He said in the trial, I intended to stop the threat, or the jargon that is used, stop the threat. If it included killing her, it's killing her, right? He intentionally shot her. Police officers are not trained to shoot to injure, right? They're trained to shoot to kill, immobilize, stop the threat. He intended to kill her. No, I don't. Of course, I don't. I mean, I personally believe he just said, "I'm finna go and kill somebody today." No, and so to answer EQ's question, it would a jury, especially a jury of non-black people, I'm cool with a manslaughter charge versus a murder charge, especially if you don't have it as an option, because it's either murder or you walk, right? So they went that way. Answer the question about backup. Welfare check. Most calls are 2-officer calls. You may get there before your partner. It's depending on the nature of the call. You wait for a backup. If not, sometimes you got to go at it alone. But it was a welfare check, as B-Dub said. It wasn't a burglary in progress, prowler call, all these other calls that would warrant a different tactical response. Obviously, if you watched the trial, he went against training, policy, procedure. If you don't act within, if you're not disciplined, educated, it's not a profession. Like, what's the difference between the criminals and supposed to be the good guys? They're supposed to have ethics, training, all this other stuff, not just pull up and shoot and just do whatever you want to do. He didn't do that. To talk about EQ's knowledge of the area, he's a rookie. He ain't proud. This is the problem when they hire these officers from all over the place. They never deal with people other than them. Like, a lot of them, I never even went to school, lived around, and any other demographic than where I'm from. So then they give you this position in these areas, and your only interactions or in a law enforcement manner. So it's a bad deal. Lawsuit was already filed against the police, but I don't know the status of it. I don't know if it's been settled or whatever, but they absolutely did, rightfully so. Obviously, I believe Aaron Dean should never been hired as a police officer. I didn't see that, based on the tape and based on some of the things that happened during the court, he shouldn't have been hired in the first place. So absolutely, the department had some responsibility there. At the end of the day, she was legally able to be where she was at the time. He was not. Had he acted within what he was trained to do, that would have been avoided. That's the purpose of having general orders, SOPs, standard operating procedures, laws, rules. I always ask this: imagine if she saw him before he saw her and he killed that cop. Would that change the perception, the outcome? Would the charges be changed? We'll see. But he was wrong. He acted wrong, obviously. I do think murder was an appropriate charge, but what you think is appropriate charge and what you think you can get a jury to convict on two different things.
And let's talk about that. We'll talk about the jury part of everything, because in the jury, he was in front of his peers. There was an all-white jury. All white. Okay? There was not one black person on that jury trial. Jury in the stand. There was not one. Okay? When you're talking about a high-profile crime like this that happened in a predominantly black community where Atatiana Jefferson lost her life at, how is it, or how can the city of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, justify not having one person of color on that jury stand during this time of everything that transpired with with this trial here. How do they get away with that? How does that happen? How you guys feel about that? With not one black person is on the trial, not one representing on the jury, not one. I feel like
funny.
Go ahead.
Ain't it funny when we on trial? We need diversity in the jury pool. When it's supposed to be a jury of your peers, but when other people on trial, they actually get the benefit of a jury of their peers. But here's my thing: why? Because that never just really sit well with me. A jury of your peers, because think about it. So that means a jury of like-minded people. So if those people are like-minded like myself, wouldn't they most likely go in my favor? Because let's be clear. It could have been either or. It could have been murder, yes, or murder, no. But they took the cop out because manslaughter became a part of it, and said, okay, well, we'll say no to the murder, but we'll say yes to the manslaughter, because he can get the minimum. He could literally potentially walk away with probation if what I read in the news is correct. Max 20 at minimum probation. So how does that work out? How do they not? I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know.
The jury of your peers, that's a whole. I'm like, B-Dub when it comes to that. That's a whole whatever. It's unfair. It's unfair because, like you said, if the situation was opposite, then of course there would be a diverse jury of that person's peers. But in this case, I mean, let's just be honest with you. Jury of your peers, of his peers. This is Fort Worth, Texas, who is known to be in the limelight in a negative way. And there's a lot we have to take into consideration here. You have to look at, who these people are, this jury panel. You have to look at the judge in this case. Why have not even the defense attorneys or somebody look at this and say, wait a minute, hold up, this is not right? I mean, if this man had the guts to go there and kill somebody, whether it was intentional or not, then are we surprised that the people who are going to determine his fate, that they all look like him? See, this whole thing to me looks suspect. And I'm sorry, it just does. I mean, but like I said, this is Fort Worth, where there's so many things that have happened over the last 10, 20 years. Well, that's happened over time, for probably since the beginning of time with Fort Worth. But I'm not surprised here. Not surprised. I mean, I'm just not. I got to be careful with my words, because I just got to be careful with my words. But anyway, I'm not surprised.
And Fort Worth is in Tarrant County. The name for Tarrant County is, they call it Tolerant County, because they tolerate so much when it comes, especially when you are of color. If you're not, put it this way, if you don't have the complexion for the protection, you're in trouble. That's just how it is. That's just the aura that goes around around Tarrant County, period. Because look at those little towns that are close to Fort Worth. You got Cleveland, you got Burleson,
Alvarado, Benbrook, all those towns. You got
Saginaw,
Cater,
right.
Saginaw.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Eagle Mountain. You got what is it called? Haltom City,
right.
North Richland Hills, all those areas. I mean, we're talking about Fort Worth, where we have seen several changes of the guards and leadership there. Whether it's the city government, school board, school district. So we've seen so many things. Fort Worth police have had so many. Their turnover rates is terrible because of police officers violating policies. I'm talking from the bottom to the top. So, I mean, this does not come as a surprise to me.
Right. You can add
Well,
something
I
to
have
that?
a question. Before we beat up, I'm sorry. I have a question. Did they not ever even take into consideration the safety of the little boy that was in the house? I mean, because you fired a weapon and subsequently killed somebody. But what about the little boy that was in? Nobody even. I mean, I don't even know if that's been mentioned in this case, because he could have been hurt too or killed.
Right.
I mean, was that not the nephew? I think it was the nephew or the little cousin or something. I mean,
Nephew.
this kid, sadly, this kid watched all of this unfold at 8 years old. I mean, did we not ever even take that into consideration in this court proceedings? I haven't been following it as much. I mean, was that ever even?
As far as
And why was he not punished for that? Because you put that child's life in danger as well.
Correct. As far as my knowledge, I don't think they even added no type of charges as far as with the safety of this child or endangering him or anything like that or whatever. But the child did testify to what he
Yeah,
had.
I saw that.
Yeah, he
I
did
saw
testify.
that part.
Right.
I saw that.
And that's sad that kid has to relive that, and for him to see exactly what he had saw, and for him to relive everything that transpired with, I believe that was his cousin or aunt,
Or something like that.
I know he was related to her, but he has to relive that moment and describe in detail about what transpired on that night, something that he would never ever be able to live down until the rest of his life, because you're talking about a child that was there with somebody in the last time that you're able to see this person alive. So he has to go through that and be able to relive that for the rest of his life.
Oh, and not to mention, he did not even render aid once he knew what was going on. He didn't no CPR. No, he didn't make any attempts to try to save this woman's life, which is another reason why I think murder was the correct charge and what he should have been charged with.
Right, but see, but with the I agree with everybody on the panel. It should have been a murder charge, because you can put up and you can paint the picture of intent with this guy's, like Jim Jamal said, he's supposed to have ethics. He's supposed to have the training. He's supposed to take in consideration of and be protecting the people inside of the city of Fort Worth. He disregarded all that. He disregarded the general orders, the SOP. He disregarded his own safety, because when you're doing things at nighttime, 2 o'clock in the morning, if you are afraid or scared or whatever the case may be, you got to sit back, and like I told you before, you just go in with guns blazing. You got to sit back and kind of reevaluate and assess what you got going on here before you get to move it around. But he did not do none of this. He did everything, and it's almost like in a stealthy, I'm going to kill you type of mindset. That's how it looked to me. That's how it came across to me. And he was dead wrong for what he did. He was dead wrong for it. G-Man, you there?
Yeah, so to go back to the jury part of it, so the prosecutor and the defense, you're talking about the jury appears, okay? You understand the jurors are the defense and the prosecutor, opposite sides, right? They have to agree on the jury selection. They go through a process of Q&A, as Mr. Know-it-all said. That process is called voir dire. Each side get to ask questions. Defense pick these, prosecutor pick these. Then they have to come and agree on the seated jury. In essence, so it's not like one side can just, hey, I'm gonna pick the jury or the other side. No, they have to agree to make it a fair and impartial jury. The issue that I have with that is if we reverse it, if the victim, Miss Jefferson, had killed the officer, there's no way they would have let all black jury be seated for it.
Nope.
There's no way possible. There's
nope.
no way. So, but that's that's a state's issue. That's a prosecutor's deal to allow the case to go without it. You know, like you said, maybe the defense would have not let an all-black jury sit, but they certainly could not have had a fair, just argument and not having at least one or two on there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This issue I have with the jury part of it, but that's all I want in the chat.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you guys this, okay? With the city of Fort Worth and everything that's transpired and had been transpiring over the years in Fort Worth with officers, police officers, not just in city of Fort Worth by itself, but we're talking about Fort Worth going to these different communities and, you know, gunning people down and killing, you know, unarmed black men and women. Is this cycle, is it going to get worse before it get better? Or is it going to be better before it get worse? How do you guys feel about that? Because, you know, I just go ahead, go first, EQ. How do you feel about that? You think it's going to get worse before it get better, or it's going to, you know, or it's going to be better before it get worse?
Just to be totally honest with you, this is not going to get any better. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, because you don't ever know the intent of the intent of other people. You don't know what's on another person's mind. You have to be in order for that to change, we have to value each other as human beings. We have to value it and respect each other's differences and similarities. And we have to value life. So I don't know. I don't think, but I just don't think it's going to get any better. And sadly, we have to, you know, love and on our brothers and hug on them and just be there for them, because, you know, this is the thing. One of the things, not only brothers, as you can clearly see, sisters. These are the things we are up against in society. In a society where people don't value you because of the color of your skin, because people don't want to look past your differences. And, you know, you can't change the heart and mind of people, and what's deeply rooted in them, what's in them, it's going to come out. So I don't see this getting any better. To me, it seems like it's getting worse, because we only know about the things that have made it to the media. What about the stories of the brothers and sisters who have been slain at the hands of cops that we don't know about? And I'm sure there are a plethora of stories that haven't been told, that have been swept under the rug or whatever. So that's why it's imperative for us as a people to stick together and to be there for one another, because, you know, we don't know when the next situation like this is going to unfold.
Right. So, B-Dub, let me ask you this, B-Dub. As far as a community, you know, when something like this go down, what do you believe would be one of the best pieces of advice that you can give the community when something like this transpire, where, you know, somebody in your community end up losing their life in the hands of police? You know, what would you think would be a solution?
Well, I want to try to be respectful, but I will start with what's not the solution. Standing in front of the buildings is not the solution. Talking on megaphones is not the solution. Making posters and T-shirts is not the solution. There's no instant solution. These things are going to happen more, and they're going to continue to happen. There is a solution, but it's going to take time for it to set into place. Go to your kids. Teach them the importance of power and control over their community. Encourage them to go into local politics. Encourage them to go into law enforcement. Encourage law enforcement on every level. Police officers, sheriffs, lawyers, judges. Encourage them to go into these professions, and also start vetting the people in your communities who are already in these positions, and make sure you're voting in people who have your interests at heart. I don't care about the president. I don't care about who's in Congress, who's in the House, who's in the Senate. You need to worry about who's sitting on that bench to decide these types of things. Because had the right person been on that bench, justice would have been served. And once justice starts to get served, these things will stop happening. Because if your child does something and you let them do it, or you just tell them, hey, don't do that, that's bad, and don't do anything else, what are they going to do? They're going to keep doing it. Because, okay, you told me it's bad, you told me not to do it, but there's no repercussions. But when you give them a real punishment and they suffer repercussions, then they think about it. Then they say, okay, well, maybe that's not what I want to do. So until these officers start suffering some actual real repercussions, nothing's going to happen. Until somebody gets into the right position who has the right power to say, you know what? The city's not paying for these lawsuits anymore. Every time this happens, police pension is going to start paying these lawsuits. Guarantee you, officers will get better at their job. The ones who are not already good at their jobs, they're going to get better at their jobs. Because that's real punishment. Start taking money out of their pockets. Start making sure that they serve the same time, just like Gentleman Jamal said. Flip it. What if she got to jump on him? Which is kind of the point I was making earlier. You know, he was being reckless. What if somebody would have came out and got him? That person, it would be life. The only decision is, do they do life in prison or the death penalty? That's the only decision.
Facts.
So why are these officers, these particular officers who keep getting caught in these particular situations, why are they not treated the same? And until they get treated the same, what's the motivation to change?
And you know what, B-Dub, with this whole thing that happened with Atatiana, and it's heartbreaking because you know, when you have to, and I feel bad for the community, and we didn't talk about this, whatever, but I'm gonna bring it up right now. You know, just to look at the community, how, you know, people were in front of the courthouse, and, you know, the outburst that went on inside the trial. You know, the family felt, you know, that there was no justice served, and I'm with them. I feel their pain because me and my family, we went through something totally similar early, you know, last year, right around this time last year, we went through the same thing. So I can feel those people pain, you know, when you know for a fact that you have so much evidence that's pointing against the person who hurt or destroyed or took your loved one's life. And then for the jury to come back and say, that ain't it. That ain't, we ain't got nothing. Nah, we're going to do manslaughter and give you 10 years of probation. You see what I'm saying? 10 years of probation. So I know how I feel. So, you know, with this story, you know, with everything that happened with Tatiana, you know, my condolences go to her family, but I can definitely relate to everything that family is going through, and how you definitely feel a sense of like, man, the system just it's not working for us. It don't work for us, and it's heartbreaking. And I'm speaking from experience as well. It don't matter how big of a trial it is or how small a trial may be, because I noticed when the trial is a high profile trial, it's a high profile case, you have all the elite black people. You know, you got the Reverend Al Sharpton, you got Benjamin Crump, you got Jesse Jackson, everybody that was like out, and I'll take in case, and we're talking about like Ahmaud Arbery when everything happened with him in Georgia. You got all these different elite people that was there, putting eyes and ears inside the courtroom, and it was to a point to where their power was so noticed, and to the point to where the defense attorney, he felt like they were threatened because of so much black power and eyes and ears that was inside that courtroom. So we got to have that same energy, for small cases that's not high profile. And I'm speaking from experience because everything that transpired with my brother, my brother's case wasn't high profile. If it was a high profile case, you would have had all these different elite people that's there would have said, hey, you know what? Yeah, we see what's going on. And we're going to make sure that there's no foolery going on here, sitting inside the courtroom. But when it comes to cases that's not high profile, that can be the exact same thing to where, somebody of color lose a life by somebody that's not of color. When you don't get that same class of people, elites that's there, high superior black people that's there representing the black people, then you'll end up getting everything that transpired with the situation that happened with my brother being gunned down and killed in his own home right there with his kids by a white woman that's not of color. Had my brother would have had the representation of, the Benjamin Crumps and Al Sharpton, all these elite high profile, black people at this trial, I don't think, matter of fact, I would say I don't think, I'm pretty sure that 10 years of probation wouldn't have even transpired at all, especially with the amount of evidence that was presented into his case. So I know I sound like I'm saying a whole lot, but what I'm saying is we have to show that type of support and energy for small cases that you think that is small, all the way up to the high profile. We got to be content. We got to be we got to strategize and say, nah, you know what? I'm gonna support that family. I'm gonna support all the way to this high profile crime. The low one all the way up to the high profile. So, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna close it out with talking about justice. Unfortunately or fortunately, justice is subjective. Tamir Rice, justice is subjective, right? The George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, justice is subjective. Philando Castile, justice is subjective. But we can name 100 court cases in between. Justice is subjective. Some people will think justice was not served, and you have a sect that believe that it was. Who's right? Don't know, because it's subjective. We, especially on this show, we are often critical of our own people, and rightfully so, because we need it. This time, you can't even play a video game in your own house with your nephew without being killed, and still people will say justice is subjective. Right? Make it make sense. Again, my condolences and prayers and love goes out to the victim's family, Sister Jefferson, and those involved. But that's where we at.